Okay, hi everybody. Today we're gonna do learn how to make some loops, and we're going to learn how to make some arrays, and we're going to learn how to make the loops work with the arrays. Now, I have a lot of stuff typed in here, so you might want to pause the video. You need to do some catching up. We're creating a bunch of integer variables at the top, x position and y position, set them to 25. That's where we're going to use that as we draw a bunch of ellipses or circles. Dx and dy are both integers. You're going to set to 50. And every time we draw an ellipse, we are going to increase or advance it along a diagonal by 50 units. And then w and h represent the width and the height of an ellipse. Now, please add the setup. We're making our output window 500 by 500. And now make your draw method. Now, I want you to focus in on this first ellipse command. So I want you to first draw an ellipse at x position 25, y position 25 with a width and height of 50. So that's going to draw us an ellipse in the upper corner. So I'm going to comment the rest of this out so you can see. Upper corner, here's our ellipse. Now, if you continue to take a look at the code, so what I'm doing in the next command, so I'm going to comment this out, is notice I'm taking the wrong one. I'm taking the x position and I'm adding that value of dx to it. So we're going 25 plus 50 for the x, and then we're going 25 plus 50 for the y. The width and the height remain the same. So this should draw a second ellipse that's moved to the right and moved down by the same amount. So we moved over and we moved down. Same size, nothing else is changing. So if I keep looking, if I go back to the code again, so the next line of code is showing you that I'm taking the same equation, but I'm multiplying this by 2 times dx. So it's like we're taking 25 plus 2 times 50, or 100 for the x, and the same for the y. Then, if you keep looking ahead, you'll see that every time this number is increasing by 1. So what you're going to see is a bunch of ellipses that, if I draw the first one here, the next one is over and down 1, the next one is over and down, over and down, over and down. So what you get are a bunch of ellipses or circles that are on a diagonal. All we're changing are the x and y positions of the center of that ellipse. And so you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 ellipses. Now, that's all great. It looks great. And that code works. But wouldn't it be nice if we could do this in less lines of code? Well, the answer is that we can, and we can do it one of two ways. The first way is by using something called a while loop, and you've used that before in Scratch. So let's take a minute and try to speculate of how we might formulate that. Okay, so let's take a look. I've started an outline of what we need to do. So first things first, we need a counting variable. We had 10 ellipses, so we're going to need to keep track of which ellipse that we're on. And the total number of ellipses we're going to draw is 10. So as long as I is less than the number of ellipses, we're going to do something. So what are we going to do? So what I'm going to do is copy one of these commands, and I'm going to paste it in here. Now, every time we go through the loop, we want to draw an ellipse. And if we study what's happening here, every line of code, the only thing that's changing here is this number. So instead of putting a number in here, I want to replace that with a variable. let's use the counting variable. So that is what is going to increase every time we go through the loop. So now I'm going to put both of these at I. Now, remember, the first time through the loop, I is 0. So when I is 0, this is going to be 0. And that will give us the original ellipse in that first position up in the corner. Now, let's go ahead and run it no, this will, I don't want to run this because it'll have an infinite loop. After I draw this first ellipse, I need to make sure that I goes up by 1, so that after the first ellipse, then I do this ellipse, which is really 1 times dx. So every time through the loop, I need to increment I by 1. So I'm going to say I plus plus. I'm going to move that over. So now if I run this, you'll see that once again we have those along the diagonal. And just so that we're clear, if we change the number of ellipses to 5, that means we should draw 5. And we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so let's go back to our code and let's put that back to 10. Now what I want to do is I also want you to know that we can make other while loops. Or we could make a for loop. Now remember, a for loop has a different syntax. We have initialize the counting variable, and then we're going to have a semicolon, and then we're going to have some kind of condition, and then we're going to have an increment or decrement. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. So what I want to do now is I want to comment out that while loop, and I want to do the same thing we just did, but I want to use a for loop. So most of what we did in the while loop is actually going to be right in the for loop header. So we're going to say we're going to initialize our counting variable int I equals 0. And then we're going to have a condition. We will need to borrow this num ellipses, or we could just say, how about we just say I less than 10 this time? We'll just use the number instead of a variable. And then we'll say I plus plus. So again, with a for loop, you should always have a set of curly brackets. And now, since we did all the hard work up here, we can just steal this command and paste it in here. So now we should get the same output that we got with the while loop. So let's go ahead and run that. And we do. So let's go back to our code. And a good moral to the story here is a note to put in here. Every for loop can be written as a while loop, and every while loop can be written as a for loop. So go ahead and make sure that you've saved this so we don't lose anything. And in the next video, we're going to do a little bit more with while loops and for loops that show us output down in the console area.